Next on our oath, we have comedian, my friend, and I got to open for him, Jim Florentine. Jim, how you doing, man?
It's good to see you, man. How's everything?
I got to tell you, as you know, I got to be your feature for 2 nights. And working with you was so much fun because I saw you on the show. I've seen you on different things, but just seeing somebody's comedy and seeing how they put things together was so cool.
No, I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. That definitely does, man. For a veteran that's been around a while and stuff. I've always liked that when I was up and coming too. I always learned from the guys that have been around a while and stuff and always complimented them.
You show up to a place, and a lot of people don't know how this works. As a headliner, you show up, you don't know who's going to host your show. A lot of times you don't know your feature, and you're just waiting for your turn, but you're hoping that the people in front of you do their job so that the audience is ready. Now, how many times have you done a show where the guys before you didn't do their job and you're going, wow, it would have been better if I just did this myself?
Yeah, sometimes that happens. You just kind of learn to adjust to it. If the crowd's not really feeling it. But sometimes, if the first couple of guys don't do the job, maybe it's the crowd. The crowd's just weird that night and they're not great. I've noticed that too, where I'm like, okay, these guys aren't doing well. And then when I get up there, there's just a crowd just in a weird mood and they're not really into it. Maybe they're not into the edgy material or whatever. So something you just have to figure it out. It's almost like, I always say like Peyton Manning when he used to come up to the line of scrimmage and just look at the defense. Go, all right, no, I'm changing this. And he'd be always pointing. I see this coming. So we're going to change the play. And that's what you have to do as a comic.
The room you're in, it's a more intimate room in downtown Orlando. It's not like you're working this huge stage. It's the people are right there in front of you. They're not, they're regular bar seats. So this is like going back to your roots where you play like a small club in New York or something. And the connection you have with the audience is a lot different than one of these huge stage shows.
I love them. I love the small rooms. It's just because they're right on top of you. Like, the Comedy Cellar in New York City and the Stand Comedy Club in New York City. I perform all the time. And they're small stages and the crowds are right on top of you. So I love it. I love it. That's the perfect setting for comedy. So those shows are always great.
Now, what was interesting for me is normally I try to warn comedians if I'm opening or I'm featuring and their audience is a little rough or somebody's acting weird in the audience. There's always one person that I like to, hey, you got this person in the second row. They want to be part of the show and everything. Nobody gave me the inkling that happened. But during one of our shows, this woman, she was, I guess, mid-40s, decided she wanted to be part of the show. And everything you said, she took offense to and went after. And you're trying to do your bit, and eventually you go, wait, I can't do my show anymore, and you have to look down and take on this person. And how difficult is that? Or do you go, I guess this is the show now?
It happens a lot. When you mix an alcohol and people out, and then they feel like for some reason they could yell at the comedian or comment after every joke, which is always weird because those are the same people the next day would be at a movie theater and be sober and be mad that, 14-year-old kids behind them are talking through the whole movie and how rude they are. Meanwhile, they're doing the same thing at the comedy show the night before. It's usually a drunk white woman that won't shut up. That's what it usually is.
It is. I don't want to stereotype, but it is.
And even if it's a guy, eventually his friends or his wife would just go, just shut up. You're just go leave then, or just be quiet. You're ruining the show, and he'll listen. Nothing worse than a drunk white woman. And they always sit in the front. That the heckling always comes from usually like the first couple of rows because those people want attention when they're out. They want to sit in the front so they can be part of the show.
What was a weird part about that too is you dealt with it. And I mean, you're used to doing it. So it was funny. The audience was laughing. I think the audience a couple times told her to shut up, which they're on your side then when that happens. But this is the weird thing. At the end of the show, when we're saying goodbye to everyone, we're thanking them for coming. This woman comes up and basically starts going, oh, this was such a great show. It was fantastic. And you beat her to death. And she was so happy about that. And I don't know whether that was attention or she forgot what she did.
She probably forgot what she did. And I don't like to get into it with them after the show unless they come at me after the show and go, hey, I didn't like what you said or whatever. So I just gotta go, yeah, nah, it's all good fun. We're just having a good time. And it's a comedy show. I just want to diffuse it because once I'm off stage, I'm done. I'm done fighting with you. You know, I try not to be as vicious as possible. I could right off the bat, but sometimes if you do it too soon, go at them really hard too soon, the crowd will go against you. So you kind of have to make it where they're so annoying that the crowd's going to be on your side no matter what you say.
Now, my comedy is, I take a lot of it to myself. It's my stupidity, it's my issues, it's everything else like that. You hit topics that are rough, and you don't see the line, which is an amazing thing to be able to do. You go, this is funny. I don't care if you're going to be bothered by it. I think this is ridiculously funny, and you go after it. And when you're writing a joke like that, you're going, does it even hit anywhere in your head? This is going to bother some people.
Yeah, it does, and that's the jokes I like the best, where you can ride that fine line where you don't know if it's going to upset somebody or bother somebody. But look, it's a comedy show. So I don't look, the most innocent jokes I could do could bother somebody. I remember I was going through my divorce years back and I was talking about my divorce on stage. And it was just jokes about, you know, hey, I'm a single dad now. I got to figure out how to do this shit. And this woman after the show got, you know, she's like, you ruined my night. I go, why? She goes, because I was going through a divorce and because you brought your divorce up, it made me to think about mine. And it made me upset and I couldn't enjoy the comedy show. I'm like, well, how was I supposed to know that you were going through a divorce? Like, how was that my fault? So in other words, you just don't know what's going to strike a nerve with somebody. And if you want to ride that line, you have to take it where people are going to get upset by stuff. So I like doing that and just pushing buttons and riding that line and then maybe going over it a little bit, maybe not right on that line. So that's the way I like to do comedy, most of my stuff.
I talk about this with a lot of comedians because it just is, and I hope people are listening. I know they're listening, but they sometimes don't hear you. If you're offended at one joke and you laughed at every other joke that didn't apply to somebody else and you didn't decide that bothered you, you know, you got to let those go. You can't arbitrarily decide what you deem to be prejudice as long as it didn't apply to you, it was okay.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You know, they could just pick out one bit, but it's just like if you watch a movie, right, or a sporting event. You know, you get spoiled because if you're watching a football game and your team, the quarterback throws an interception and returned all the way for a touchdown, and they lose the game at the last second. Who are you gonna blame? It just didn't go your way. Whether you're watching a movie or a TV show and you don't like the scene, whether it's some woman getting beat up in the scene or something, or somebody getting raped or some sexually assaulted. Okay, so you didn't like it. What are you going to do? You're just going to write a letter? You're going to stop watching the show? You got to get through those uncomfortable moments. And that's the same thing in a comedy show. But people have liquor in them and it's a live show. And sometimes people feel like they need to speak out with that. I have no problem with someone getting offended by a joke. You know, I'm not going to tell them you can't be, but you know, you don't have to yell it out and let people know. You just could show it by your face and go, I didn't like that at all. And I'm not going to laugh the rest of the show because he offended me. That's fine. But don't stop the show because something that offended you doesn't offend anybody else. It's like, so sorry. You know, we don't, as comics, we don't go, hey, here's our email. Send all the topics that you'd like us to talk about that won't offend you, and we'll try to write jokes about that. That's the only way to solve that, and that would never happen.
It's always amazes me when that happens. I'm fortunate that my jokes are normally at my expense. I was trying. A lot of people don't realize when you're doing comedy, you have to choose what you want to do. Do you want to make it about you, or do you want to make it about the world? And that's a tough choice. And a lot of your comedy you take from your own life, but there's a lot of commentary about the world there. When you are watching news, you go, oh yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah, or something that I just don't like. A lot of my comedy is stuff that I don't like. You know, so I'll just find an angle and make fun of it. And some people are like, hey, I like that. How are you going to make fun of it? Whether it's the NFL and Taylor Swift or pickleball or something like that. I'm going right at it. And whether you play pickleball like Taylor Swift or the stupid shit that the NFL does, too bad that I'm talking about it.
I always love that. I got a buddy of mine who he went on before me, And after he got off, this couple stormed out of there. And it was a theater, and they were in the area where you buy the tickets, probably about, 100 yards away. And I could hear this woman howling. She was so mad. She was yelling at the guy, going, we drove 4 hours for here. I'm going, you drove 4 hours to see me? Jesus. But at the same time, it was so amazing how upset she was. And the manager came back later and goes, it was so hard for me not to laugh.
Yeah. Look, and a lot of times it's politics that divide people. If you bring up one side or the other, that could do it too. So, people. That's what it is when you go to a live show. That's why I like to say stuff that you usually don't say around the office, that I can make fun of, like, wow, finally in a place where I can laugh at something like this. And they're used to being around, whether they're a teacher or they got a corporate job where they have to be, everything's got to be safe. They can't laugh at anything inappropriate. And then they forget where they are at a comedy club and like, no, you're allowed to laugh at something inappropriate. You're not going to get fired here for doing that.
I think about all the weird things that happen. And your earlier career, you do crank yankers and everything else like that. And I always try to figure out the legality of this. I'm a lawyer and I'm going, you have to get, I guess at the time you didn't have to worry about them signing waivers, or maybe did they have to sign waivers when they were actually part of the show?
Yeah, well, crank yankers, it was outgoing calls. So yeah, and we had to do them from a state that was a one-party consent, as long as one person knew the conversation was being recorded. So we knew. The other people on the other end didn't know, but we did. So we did them out of New York or Nevada. We did them out of Vegas. We did them in California. They were all one-party consent states. So, and then they had to call them back, crank anchors, go, hey, we just pranked you. You want to be on a prank call show? And most of the people would say, yes. I wasn't involved in that part. That was producers and stuff. So, yeah, we did have to get a release from them to do the call, to air the call.
Now, I always wonder with shows like this, like prank shows themselves, the ones where they do physical stuff, where they're out in the wild, I think that just puts you out there for bad stuff. But I can't imagine somebody being so offended that you did a phone call that they would sue or something like that.
They wouldn't sue, but they could say, no, you can't use the call. I did a whole hidden camera series called Meet the Creeps, where me and a bunch of comics went around with a hidden camera and mess with people. And after we messed with them, they had no idea we were doing it at the time. We'd have to get their release. And I think maybe one time we didn't get a release, but other than that, you know what it was? We always had a cute girl, a really hot girl, to kind of flirt with the guy, afterwards. Yeah. And he'd, okay, I'll sign, no problem, even though how mad he was. So that usually helped us get the releases.
I know that you also have your own podcast, Everybody is Awful. Now, when you have a guest on, one of the hardest things is to get celebrity guests, to get them on to do your shows and everything else like that. And sometimes to get them to open up or say certain things, and you don't want them to look bad. I've never had anybody on the show that I made look bad, because it's a little silly. Why should somebody who comes and volunteers to do something for you that you would have that gotcha moment? How is it for you when you get somebody on for you to go, okay, I hopefully they'll answer questions. How do I get them, going?
Well, usually on my podcast, I don't have people on, but I worked on that metal show on TV where we had like all these hard rock and metal guys on. I'm not on there to challenge them over stuff. It's more of like a fun, like it was like the Tonight Show for AC/DC fans. So it's like, I'm not going to put people on the spot with stuff. They're just there to promote their album. I appreciate like a guy like Slash from Guns N' Roses coming on. So I'm not going to go, what's your beef with Axl? We need to know. Why do you hate him? I'm not going to do that. So I was always I'm like, this isn't the time and place for that. It wasn't a debate show, and it wasn't. So that's what I did with that. But it depends. My podcast is pretty much me just ranting about different stuff. Like I have fans that listen. If they see anything on social media they think I'll hate, they send it in and I make fun of. So it's pretty simple, my podcast.
So you just basically sit there and just go, okay, I'm going to go off for 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, whatever it is. Like I just, someone just sent one in before I was going to talk about, someone goes, I think I'm on my way to the ER. And she just left it like that on Facebook. It's like, okay, we know what you want. So now you want everybody to go, are you okay? What's wrong? Do you need help? I wish if I lived near you, I'd meet you there. Prayers, thoughts of, and meanwhile, it's like, you just left that open. Like, why? So, because you just want people in the comment section instead of just going, "Hey, I'm in the ER. I broke my leg, but I should be okay. I'm going to work for." You can't do that. You just have to leave it an open-end question so people go, "Oh my God, is everything all right?" It's sad that people are doing that.
I've learned in the last 5 to 10 years, I think the ability of people to walk it off has just plummeted. Our mental health is in the garbage. Our need for self gratification is through the roof. Where if people don't comment about a post of ours, we're brokenhearted. I mean, where does it even come from?
It's like being in high school validation. You want it to get valid. You want it to fit in. So you see everybody else doing something. So now, like, okay, if that's what everybody's doing, then I'm going to do it. Okay, I guess it's just a new trend. Okay, then I guess I have to post everything about my life. I have to post everything about my vacation. Nobody gives a shit about your vacation. You don't have to document it online. Show your family and friends those pictures, and but you don't have to take a picture of the drink at the airport. I need this day one of my vacation. Yeah. Great. I don't. Why is it on my timeline? I already know what a margarita looks like. You didn't have to take a picture of a drink. Everybody needs a vacation. Everybody goes on. Nobody feels sorry for you. It's always about, oh my God, I work so hard. Yeah, like nobody else does, just you.
It cuts me up so much at times, but I do admit if somebody shows me food at a restaurant that I haven't eaten at before, I go, I wonder if that's good.
What if someone takes a picture?
If somebody takes a picture at some restaurant that I haven't been to, I'm going, is the food good? Because I'm an eater. So if you show me a restaurant I haven't eaten at, I might go, is the crab good, or is that like, you?
Okay, but is that gonna make you hungry? Because everyone writes in the comment section,
No. I mean, come
I'm
on,
hungry.
Come on, LOL. Nobody is laughing out loud.
Nobody's laughing.
Nobody
out loud.
is rolling on the floor laughing out loud.
Nobody's doing that, and nobody got hungry. That someone.
Yeah.
If I just ate dinner and somebody posts a picture of a steak, I'm not going to go. Now I got to eat again.
No. I wonder if it's good. Sometimes I'll ask. Like if they went to a movie, I'll go, "Did you like it?" I might ask an opinion, or if,
I'm not asking opinion because the same guy eats at McDonald's, so he has no taste buds. He thinks McDonald's is good, so I'm not going to trust him on a steak.
I was actually at a comedy convention, at a comic book convention, and my buddy, who's a little uppity, he's like, "Hey, where can I get a good steak?" And this girl who was in front of my booth goes, "Sizzler," and he looked over at her like he just winged a crap at her, like she just winged a crap at him. Sizzler, and she was dead serious. And we do make that joke 10 years later. We still look at him. I go, "Where are we going, Sizzler?"
Right.
So every once in a while, these people do wind up in my memory decks or whatever they call those things.